federal law, you have to light a flag at night.
You should go down that route, right?
You might as well.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get the meeting started. Everybody have a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting?
I will move to approve as written.
Okay, it's been moved by Amanda, second by Larry, all in favor. Minutes approved. Okay. Jump on down to new business. We got the cereal malt beverage license renewals for Colorado Retail Ventures, Diamond Art Bar, Majestic Service Truck, Stop and Restaurant. Your motion to approve those renewals.
So moved.
Moved by Larry. Second by Derek. All in favor? Approved. Tree trim license, Barnes Tree Service, and by Leonard Barnes.
So moved.
Moved by Amanda. Second by Derek. All in favor? Approved. RV park license, there's two of them, the Homesteader Motel and RV Park, and Zillman RV Park.
So moved.
Been moved by Larry. Second by Amanda. All in favor? Approved. Year-end transfer. You want to go over that? How you're transferring?
Yep. So I printed it out for everybody because I thought it'd be easier to see than on the share. So when we did the 2020 budget, as you may recall, at that time we didn't know about the sales tax, we didn't know about the new electrical agreement, we didn't know about the police department, none of that. So when we did the budget, the transfers that we had, they're on this page, the only transfers that were proposed for 2020 was to the general fund, $260,000 from the utility fund to the general fund, and $100,000 from sewer to the general fund. So we didn't have anything going into capital improvement or equipment reserve at that time. But those two things made a significant difference, and I'm going to go over this spreadsheet to just kind of show you where we're at. At the very top on the left-hand side are all the funds, the budgeted funds, and the first column shows our balance as of today. Down at the bottom is all of the list of anything that we've got encumbered currently for all of those funds that will need to be paid out of period 13, and then other expected expenses out of period 13, and that amount is based on like an average over the last several years, what we typically spend out of period 13. Bills that are through the month of December that we pay in January. So that's what the expected period 13 bills are. Some payroll expenses and things like that. So those two amounts, plus our balance, and then taking out the outstanding bills and the encumbrances, if you look over to the right-hand side of that box, you'll see what we need to have as our beginning balance for 2021. That's what we have in our budget for 2021. We have to have that amount in there, as close to that as possible, and not less. So looking at all of those things combined is how we come up with the amount that we need to transfer in order to get to that point. So for the general fund, we needed to transfer in $230,000 to get to that point. Down below in the budgeted transfers, you can see that out of that $260,000, we're transferring $140,000 from the utility fund to the general. And then we had $100,000 from the sewer, and we're only going to transfer $90,000 because if we did the whole $100,000, it would make the sewer fund short for the beginning of next year. So we couldn't transfer the whole amount, we could only transfer $90,000. But that total is what we needed into the general fund. So we didn't need the whole amount. So that $120,000 that's not transferred, I am looking at the wrong one. JR, I'm going to have to look at yours. I printed off the wrong one for me. I printed off my one I had this morning. No, that's all right. 16. Yep, sorry. It's good. So, sorry. I was fiddling with it earlier today. So we kind of divided that between what was left from those budgeted transfers and put half of it into capital improvement and half of it into equipment reserve. So does that all make sense? That was for our budgeted transfers that were part of the 2020 budget. But in addition to that, if you look at the top at the utility fund, because of the savings that we had, we ended up with some additional funds that we are able to transfer out of the utility fund into capital improvement and equipment reserve. So I talked to Angela, and she said as long as we don't go over our budget authority for the utility fund, we can transfer those funds wherever we need them to go. So working with JR, we decided that we would transfer $145,000 out of the utility fund into capital improvement, an additional $145,000, and then an additional $5,000 into equipment reserve. So all of those combined together, you can see the right-hand side at the very top just basically is showing you that we are not going over budget in any of our funds. We are below our budget authority in all of the funds, doing all of these transfers and everything that we want to do. We're still good as far as our budget authority goes. So the summary will show you where the transfers are coming from and where they're going to. And the only additional one that's not really shown in any of the budgeted funds is the new infrastructure sales tax fund. And we're just going to transfer all of it that we accumulated this year over to the infrastructure improvement fund, which is another capital improvement fund. And that amount is $129,535.32. As of tomorrow, we will have that in that fund.
That's what we brought in?
For sales tax, yes. And that is only for the last 3 quarters of the year, because this didn't start till April 1st. Yeah, so that's looking really good. Can anticipate at least that next year. I mean, this was during 2020, and that's what we brought in. So.
And when is the payment due on that bond?
Not until March.
Okay.
So what we will bring in January and February will be sufficient to pay the first part of our bond payment next year. So the way that's going to work next year is, just so you know, we will take the money that we get in from the sales tax in January and we'll put it into the debt service fund. And then February, if we still need some, it'll go in there. And if there's any excess above that that's left over, then we start putting it in the infrastructure improvement fund. So the first thing we do is put it into the debt service account, and then we start moving it over into the other one after we've made sure we can pay our debt.
And the reason why that's a lot more than the first payment will be is we're doing hopefully a phase 1, 2, and 3 or ABC, whatever you want to call it. The first year there will be excess funds that are collected, not really excess, because eventually all of that will probably be tied up in debt service. So that part of the additional income based on that tax that we get to the end of the funded street projects will most likely be pretty much used in its entirety at that point. The reason for the differences in the capital improvement and the equipment reserve, it may go as high as $230, $250 on equipment this year. We've held off on equipment, bucket truck, and the digger derrick for an extended period of time. We need both of those things. I'm not sure we'll do it in this year, but that was plenty of money. The reason I wanted more in capital improvements is in the event we could get additional electrical work done, or when we run into things that are a surprise or something. I didn't want too much tied up, any more tied up in equipment reserve than we needed, and that leaves money open either to, like I say, do more on the infrastructure or for unforeseeables.
Now that we're going to get this cash flow kind of going in the direction that we wanted it to get there,
Right.
now's the perfect opportunity to do as much electrical, do as much streets, do that stuff. that we can fit in,
Thank you.
because it's been a long time coming, and we need to just work on it. But yeah, that sales tax, that's bringing in about an extra $15,000 a month.
There is no lack of places for it to go. Every year, the 19 years I've been here before, it's always been how do you make the money at the most. I mean, we're still in that position. We just are going to be able to do more. It's going to be moving in the right direction. You won't see the cash balance go up. Not if I have a say. I mean, we don't need to hold money. We need to put it back in. The city's always maintained a cash reserve. That's fine, but I don't think we want to. We should not be growing that. We should be utilizing the funds every year we can towards the things that are behind.
Okay, does everybody agree with those amounts to be transferred to the different funds there?
What I'm going to do, Scott, is just read the summary out so
Okay.
that we have it for the minutes for the auditors. And
Okay.
then you can, so the transfers will be from the utility to the general of $140,000, from utility to capital improvement of $205,000, from utility to equipment reserve of $65,000, from sewer to the general of $90,000, and from the infrastructure sales tax fund to the infrastructure improvement fund of $129,535.32.
Do I hear a motion to make those transfers?
So moved.
And moved by Amanda, second by Dara. All in favor? And approved. Okay, old business, property cleanups.
I don't have anything to report on it unless Lauren does. We have the one that we've served on that's going to be on a tax sale. Haven't done anything with it. There's no improvement on it. The Swigert property has significant improvements. There is a little ways to go. I've had communication. We expect progress to continue on that when weather permits. And the third one that we notified, I did not look after that. I apologize. So we'll follow up on that.
Okay, project pending.
On the transient vendor ordinance, there are two new ones. There was one, ordinance 626, which was on the Gmail drive. There is now ordinance 626, option 1 and option 2. I had sent it in, changing all of the chief of police to city clerk, as was the instruction last time. Lila brought to my attention that she is not able or allowed to take fingerprints, which was in section 105-103, subparagraph I. She had stated that they had not been having a 2x2 photograph or fingerprints. They've just been taking a copy of a government issue ID, government issue photo ID, such as a passport or a driver's license, etc. So I have option 1 and option 2 in there. Option 1 is keeping it relatively as is, stating that, sorry, it's taking just a second to come up, stating that the Cheyenne County Sheriff's Office can take the fingerprint, or as option 2 has, allows either fingerprints or the applicant may furnish a current valid government-issued photo identification. And so that allows, rather than them having to submit a 2x2 photograph or get fingerprints, they can furnish the current valid government-issued photo identification. The reason there's two options in there is this is what they have been doing. It is not what was in the ordinance. I don't see any reason not to put it in the ordinance if the council wants that, but as that was not my direction from the council, I amended the ordinance as was, and then included the second option with this government ID option in there as well. So I will leave it to the council to decide how they want. Other than that, I think we have what is ordinance 626, which is the revision of the chapter 5, article 1, and it amends 5-103, subsection I. 5-104, 5-105, 5-107, 5-109, and 5-110. Several of those are just taking out chief of police and modifying. The ones that have been actually amended are 104, 105, and 107. I didn't know if the council had comments or questions on the proposed ordinances.
So which one of your options is doing it the same way we're doing it now?
It's option 2.
I honestly didn't even realize it said that about the 2x2 picture within 90 days.
But you guys are taking a copy of something anyway.
We
right?
do driver's licenses as well, which seems more reasonable to me than requiring a 2x2 picture that's taken within the last 90 days. I mean, it's obvious when you look at a driver's license usually that it's the person you're
Yeah.
looking at. So that's just what we've always done. Didn't even know it said that. So. Driver's license, or in the case of like some of those people that come from Europe to sell the books, they always have their passport and photo IDs.
I guess my stance is if it's been working, why change it? Haven't had any issues with it.
Yeah, I think so too. So stay with the option 1.
Option 2 is the one that has the
Oh,
new
option 2
provision
is
for,
the one
yeah.
that's changed. Yeah, let's go with the option 2. So do we need a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 626, option 2.
I'll second.
Moved by Amanda, second by Larry, all in favor?
Aye.
Need to vote on it, don't we? Dara? Amanda?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
That passes.
Will you be able to print that and have Scott sign it this evening?
Yes.
Okay. I will email the paper right now
Okay.
to get it in. Hopefully this week's paper.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on project spending? Okay, we'll move on to street project. Anything there?
Nothing.
There- That was going to be in January when he was going to come back with stuff, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay, building permits.
I don't have any.
Okay, superintendent report.
So I talked to Brock this afternoon, and everything on the sandblasting. He was hoping to get something today. He did not. Trash, which brings us a fair amount of complaints from time to time. There's no exception over the last 2 weeks. One of the complaints was about blowing trash or about loose trash. The comment was made that the city of St. Francis is the only one that requires trash to be bagged. And I knew that was false, but it made good for the argument at that point in time for the individual. However, I went ahead and called Byron and just reestablished the reason we do that is because it's the county dump's requirement. In the event they get too much loose trash, they charge whoever's on the truck, the company, whatever, an additional fee, a significant, I think it's double. So the county's policy is that all household trash is to be bagged. We're not the exception. That's the way the whole county is. It doesn't matter if it's Bird City, the county, or whatever. So that is completely false, and I just wanted to clear that up because it's just not accurate. That loose trash thing is based on KDHE and blowing trash issues at the dump. They used to get fines for it. They still have to continue to do a significant amount of labor even with bagging the trash. But just wanted to make it really clear that that is a requirement. That's not something the city does.
Is that something that was established by the county?
Yes. Yep. KDHE was, they were getting violations for blowing trash at the dump prior to Byron being there. And not long after he was there, the county commissioners made it a requirement for all household trash. Yes. Next thing, that's just the chemical bid for the Parks and Recreation. We do this every year. They just list the primary chemicals that we're going to do, and we get just, at this point in time, only one person to get the price from locally. And so I would
Are they going to get that quickly, like in January or February? Okay. And the only reason I'm asking that is if we encumber it, it has to be paid out at period 13. And so we don't want to drag period 13 out too long.
Who's this bid from?
that'd be the
Equity?
Yeah. So you want it billed out in January is okay, right?
January, but if we talk about it tonight and we make a motion, you are encumbering it at this meeting tonight.
We can wait that amount.
That would
It's
be-
not going to hold us up on delivery. Let's just push it forward. If you just put a note on it, and I'll give this to you.
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
let's do that.
Wait till January. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we used to get 2 bids, didn't we?
Yeah.
When Bartlett's was in there.
Yeah. The last item I have is, of course, Robert was at the last meeting, and we've been talking about the theater and moving forward with that, with the likelihood that the local foundation is going to fund that. Seems to be very high, and the city committing to the other half. The next step was to set up a meeting with Betty Johnson, who works with the local group on, I think it was called the initiative thing.
Strategic doing.
Strategic doing. So Robert and I have a meeting with Betty Johnson on January 13th from 12 to 1 p.m. What that is if we can get on the list on the strategic doing, and get the theater on it, then it's lined up for the larger direct funding. So it might be jumping a little ahead, but where everybody looks like they're committed, we wanted to get on that list as soon as possible, because then it becomes a community priority instead of us just, trying to apply for the money once we're there. So hopefully this will get us on that list. I can't imagine it wouldn't be seen as a priority. But anyway, we'll have that meeting, and I'll report back after that.
Did you want Amanda to be at that meeting?
Which Milton?
I asked Amanda the other day when I talked to her. So.
Robert, you and I, not really sure. It's 1 hour. I mean, we'll just go over, history and things on it. Because we won't have specifics from our engineer at that point, but we need to tell them what we're thinking. So we'll do that. And that's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for JR?
I've got a couple. Just so that I can clarify some people want to ask, can you tell me what snow removal priorities are? As far as where you go first, where you go second?
It depends on what the snow is. It literally, it's, of course, storm routes. Main Street, storm routes. Hospital, of course, if we get where it's snowing too heavily, that becomes a priority even over at the storm routes.
Okay.
But storm routes essentially is the best
Two
way to
streets
say it.
on the sides of the hospital.
Mhm.
When do you hit those?
If we have more than 3 to 5 inches, depends on the type of snow.
Okay. Well, I've had a couple complaints from not only the hospital, but a couple of neighbors around that area that, and I'm just asking because I don't know, I wasn't here, that said the storm routes didn't get done at the last snow
That's
until
correct.
later in the day.
They didn't get done at all.
They didn't get done at all.
No.
Okay.
Because that was
The snow did not warrant doing them.
It was only about 3 inches, wasn't it?
And by the time, part of that is timing. By the time you get to it, if it's snowpack, you have nothing to do.
Yeah.
You can't do it. Depends on the consistency of the snow and the time of the year too, as to whether it's getting out. So it works really well one time and not the next, depending on time of year, temperature, density of snow. But yeah, generally speaking, it's Main Street, anything over 3 or 4 inches, again, that goes based on density of snow. If it's that real fluffy stuff that lays down in the afternoon, we'll not even do that. A lot of times, I almost always talk to Scott when it's on the edge. You get over that, and of course, you get into 5, 6 inches, then the storm routes become what we do. Time of day and traffic is a huge factor. If you're
Yeah.
driving on it the whole time and you can't move it, you just can't.
Oh, yeah.
So,
The other question I had, and I don't know if anybody else is getting complaints, but a lot of trash up at the recycle center.
Mhm.
And I feel bad for you guys and the city guys because the last 5, 6, 7, 8 times that I've been up there, people are taking and dumping trash at the recycle center. They're dumping trash at the, where you take all your grass clippings and everything.
It's getting a lot worse
It is.
in a short period of time, and I'm not sure what's driving it.
Um,
The only thing I could say is at one time, when we was having problems with people going through it, we talked about getting surveillance cameras. And I know the general public that does good doesn't care to be having a camera stare at them, and that's kind of why we haven't done it. But it's causing enough excess work. It would probably be a good idea to be able to make those responsible aware of what they're doing.
Would it do any good to possibly shut it down overnight?
Like, you know,
One reason I asked this, and this lady wasn't doing anything. I was up there at like 11:30 one night, just to take some stuff off. I've been working late. There was a lady in there going through clothes at 11:30 at night. I just wonder how much of this trash is coming in after hours with people out of town. She was out of town, an out-of-town individual. I have no idea if she brought anything in or not.
I have not gotten with Cody about trying to figure out a schedule, because we run into problems with, and you know, what time of day do you close it? I mean, I would love to be on a schedule of closing it. I mean, we work from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30. So for us to open and close it during those hours does not fit most people's lives as far as utilizing it. So there's
No,
one
and I get
of the
it.
problems with that.
Yeah, I get that, and I can see, I definitely think it's important to have some hours in the evening, but do you pull the trigger at 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night or something?
Absolutely.
Which also means that you have to have somebody go do it.
That's the
We
point.
used to have it
That
at
is the point, yeah.
10 o'clock and
Yeah.
6 or 7 in the morning, wasn't it, that it opened up?
Yeah.
Darrell Police Force did a pretty good job for a while, and then all of a sudden, they just kind of got relaxed on it, busy, times they couldn't close it, and this and that. Then that'll happen again, but maybe if we can get on and deal with the sheriff's department, that somebody can at least try to close it. If something's going on, they can't get it closed, you know, if they're on a call, but
So, I mean, and this came up once when we had the individual here too, and it just, you know, Cody and I talked about it just briefly at that meeting, and there was no follow-up on it. And it depends on the time of year how people use it too. So in the summer, when it's cool, you know, there's people up there at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, when it's hot during the day, because it's miserable in there. But should we try some winter hours, like 7 a.m. to, I don't know, 6 or 7 p.m.? Because what I could do is I could have a guy come in early and just go off a half hour. The recycle guy could do this. And then we're just worried about the closing. And the closing could be done, if it's done 80% of the time, it's still going to reduce that significantly. Would that be
And I don't know
acceptable to
if it
try
would help
those
or not.
hours?
I mean, I just,
7 seems a little early.
7's early? Okay.
In the evening, if you're shutting
Oh,
it
no,
down?
yeah, no, okay, I was,
I think it's 7 to 7. I'm like, that's still if people are working
sure.
later. I don't,
And
I
let me
don't
see
know.
if what can work for Cody, because if, is 7 a.m. early enough?
is Cody the way to go?
What's that?
Is Cody the way to
I
go?
don't really have another option without
That answer.
paying an individual to come out specifically for that.
And that's,
in the
I
wintertime,
can catch the
I think
morning
you could
one.
have different hours, you know,
And
winter
that's
to
what I was
summer.
getting at.
Because in the wintertime, I think if you open it at 7 in the morning and close it at 7 or 8 at night would work. But then in the summertime, then I think it almost needs to be open, I don't think it needs to be open at 5 in the morning, but between 6 and 7 in the morning until 10 at night.
And I think that works for the employee as well, because when it gets hot, it's better to be there earlier. I mean, I think we could shift the employees' hours for the open side of it. It's the close that,
You know,
and if that's, I mean, that could be almost year-round. If they're used to making the swing through at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, if they're already making a buzz through town, as long as they don't have a call, you know, to kind of keep the evening hours.
and then we have the weekends, which we'll have to pay the on-call person to do. And that's, I'm not saying anything against that, but it's,
but don't you think that most of the trash is accumulating and there's not somebody there?
oh, absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah. And some people are
It just
just
really
jerks
struck-
about it. I
really
mean, we
struck
have
me
people
the last-
blatantly do it.
Yeah, it's really struck me the last month or so, how
Yeah.
much more trash is building up with the,
Yeah.
people just aren't considerate, for lack of a better word. I mean,
I think you have people from the country, and I've seen it all over town.
Yeah.
They bring their trash to town with them, and they find themselves a dumpster, and they dump it, and it doesn't matter if it's morning, noon, or night. I mean, they'll find a place to dump it. And
There's a person from Goodland that comes over once a week and brings his cardboard over here. I think we still need to get a sign up there. Did we okay that sign? Have printed or made by Hot Brush or something that would say that, you know, and a donation box of some type, like we do up there for the RV park? Because I think a lot of those people would honestly maybe put something in there. There's a lot of them from the Idalia area coming in and using our recycling center. This guy's coming from Goodland. He says, well, he said, over in Goodland, they don't have anything over there now. I mean, it's just all the trash goes out there and gets shipped off. He feels like it should be recycled, so he brings it over here. And he don't bring that much, but he brings it over here. Well, why don't you throw in $1 when you do that or something, you know? If you throw in a couple dollars a month, bring all the cardboard you want over, because that's basically what we're paying, so.
So why don't I get with Cody on what he could actually do? Because it makes no sense for us to decide to open at a certain time if we can't get it closed without sending somebody out at 9 o'clock at night or whatever. So let me get with Cody on that, and because we should follow up on it. I mean, it's getting noticeably worse.
See what kind of schedules he could work into. Okay, anybody else have a question? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept and file the superintendent report?
so
Moved by Larry,
second.
second by Amanda, all in favor? Okay, attorney report, Warren?
I have nothing.
Okay, clerk report.
I just have a few short things. When we were talking about encumbrances, when we do encumbrances throughout the year, at the end of the year, whatever is still outstanding is on that transfer list. But those need to be paid in period 13. And period 13 it's just part of our software, but as long as we have outstanding encumbrances, I cannot close my year. I cannot close 2020. And that's usually not a problem as long as we can get them paid by the time the audit comes around in May. But we've got some things encumbered for Brock McEntee for 2020 that we didn't get done. The intersections, curb and guttering, that kind of thing. And I'm afraid that if we don't unencumber them, just get them off the encumbrance list for 2020 and then re-encumber them for next year, if we don't do that, I'm not going to be able to close out my year until that work is done. And that's a little bit of a problem for me.
you're talking about money that we owe him, but he
No.
hasn't, oh,
No, you guys just encumbered it.
plan.
Exactly. And it was supposed to have gotten done, but other things just, like the intersection of Spencer and Benton, we'd encumbered $22,500 for that.
And he's not going to do that work until spring now, so.
Right. And maybe
Yeah.
not even that early.
Right.
So all I really need is, it's really for the auditors. It's really a formality for the auditors, for the council to remove, and I'll give you the list, remove these things from our encumbrances for 2020, and we will re-encumber them then for 2021. Really just a formality. So we've got the intersection of Spencer and Benton for $22,500, the curb and gutter along the Courthouse Park for $420, and the intersection of Washington Street at Angle Road for $7,560. So I just need a motion to take them off.
So moved.
Okay. Been moved by Amanda,
Second.
second by Dara, all in favor? Approved.
Okay. And then at the first meeting in January, we will re-encumber these amounts along with doing this other thing. I had a gentleman who has bought Tommy Peters' mobile home park, and currently there's only one mobile home there. She had it licensed for this year. He has yet to come in and get a license. I think he felt like it was kind of unfair for him to have to get a license for 6 weeks and then get another one at the beginning of next year. That may be But the real question is, he's not licensed currently to have that mobile home park, but he would also like the ability to use those spaces as RV park spots if they're not being utilized as a mobile home park. So basically, he's asking to have 2 licenses for the same spaces. His plan is to fill it with mobile homes, but in the meantime, he'd like to be able to use it for RVs. So
Where's this at?
this is over on Valley Street.
As you go up the dirt road down,
Oh.
Majestic. Is that any different than Zimbelman's, where they've got,
Any different than what?
like Zimbelman's, where Eldon has the one mobile home and then Clay has the,
So they have
RV
2
park?
licenses. Yeah, they've got a mobile home park license for that one lot, but then the other ones are specifically RV. And what he's asking for is just kind of both licenses to cover all the spots, and so that he could use them in either way.
I think if he's buying both licenses, I mean, I don't know, I mean, he's
How much is the fee for each license?
Oh, they're $40 for each of them.
It's more a thing of placing what's I guess, a business development in a residential setting. That specifically is not an issue in that one. And in fact, the one that Zimmelman's have would be more of a situation where you maybe want to have the say of the neighbors prior to, because it is a business. There's things going in and out, or at least the ability for it to be that way. I guess what I'm trying to point out is based on the location of that, I can't imagine that would have any concern with any of the neighbors there. But given the different placement in town, I think that would be a consideration that needs to be given.
I think we required, I'll have to go back and look, we may have required that Clay get the variance request,
We did.
yeah, from the
We already
neighbors.
did.
So,
For each license?
no, for his RV park
Oh, just to
license,
be able to have RVs there?
Yeah.
Well, then we better do it the same, however we
Mhm.
did it there, even if it's not the same setting.
because that wouldn't do very much to get.
it shouldn't be, and I can bring that to the next meeting with the map and stuff. I think the first question he wanted answered was whether or not he could even do that. And I didn't see an issue with it, but, so if that's a possibility, I'll let him know he needs to get the variance.
Okay, on the Zimmerman's, does Eldon have one and Clay have one, or is it all, it's all in Clay's name now, isn't it?
So Eldon has one, Clay has one.
Yeah, Eldon just
Okay.
has the one
Okay.
mobile home, yeah. And then the rest of them are the RV. So,
I don't know. Yeah,
You said I would treat them the same and get the variance. I don't see an issue with having both licenses.
Is this under chapter 4 or chapter 16? Is this under buildings and construction, or is this under zoning and planning?
I don't know. I think it's under businesses, because it's an RV park. I don't really know, Lauren, I'd have to look.
Isn't even that trailer house on it?
The one on Valley,
Yeah.
there's one clear on the south end, up by Bob and Billy's place.
Look real quick here.
And there used to be that one and the one clear on the north and the one clear on the north. Was moved. It was just that one clear.
I think the variance thing is under zoning, but that had to do with businesses.
So if he wants to put part of it into the other, he needs to pay for both fees.
Okay. I think Lauren's asking about the variance part, but I think that's under the zoning, but then the mobile home park licenses are under,
I looked under business regulations under chapter 5, and I don't see
I can't remember where it's at.
that would be, I just want to make sure before,
It's buildings and construction is where I think. Mobile home parks is Article 10 in Chapter 4, and and the RV parks is in Article 11. So if you want to look at those are in Chapter 4. Is there something specifically you're looking for?
Just to make sure that the code does not prohibit what he's asking to do.
I didn't see anything that said you couldn't have both in the same location, but
Well, I mean, basically, he's asking to do the same thing as the Zillmans did. I
But the
think.
Zimmelmans had 2 separate lots. Does he
No,
have
it's
to-
all one lot.
well, no. So Zimmelman RV Park is these lots, and they're only for RVs, and then Eldon
But it's still
Zimmerman's.
all on the same lot. I mean, one big corner lot.
Right, but Eldon's got the one license, and it's only for that one lot.
Right.
And this guy wants to have, like, this lot can be used for either function at any time.
But it's not like Zimmerman's lot is owned separately. They're all owned by Eldon.
Yes.
But if it's like lot 1 and lot 2 of block 4, and lot 3 and lot 4 of block 4, those are specifically differently designated lots, even if they are all together owned by the same individual. So if 1 and 2 are designated as RV, and 3 and 4 are designated as mobile home, that is still a definitive parcel, whereas this would be 1 through 4 can be either one. I'm not saying that there is an issue, I just want to make sure that there's not before.
But basically, he's asking to do the same thing as Zillman, so we should treat him the same way as Zillman's. He's got to buy both licenses.
And get a variance.
And get
Yeah. And get variance if, you know.
Lauren, if you see anything that looks like it's going to be an issue, because we won't be able to do anything with this till January, because I'll have to bring back the map and stuff for you guys. So I'm going to move on. The theater grant that I mentioned the last time, we could only use that for reimbursements through the end of the year for things that were specifically spent for COVID. We've already been reimbursed from the county for the majority of that stuff. There was one hand sanitizer for $200 and some that we could get reimbursed for with this, but the amount of work involved to apply for this grant and administer this grant, to me, isn't worth getting reimbursed for $200. Just my opinion. The way that it works is they throw the money at you, $10,000, then you put all your paperwork together and you send it back to them. This is what I want reimbursed for, and then whatever you don't spend, then you have to send back. I'd be sending most of it back. So I didn't feel like that was a worthwhile one. However, with the stimulus package that was just passed yesterday by the President, part of that has theater funding, and the League at the last week's meeting said that municipality theaters are eligible, and it is for revenue replacement, revenue losses year over year. So that one is most definitely one that we could be eligible for. When I was looking at our revenue losses, year over year from 2019 to 2020, it's about 54% is what we've lost in revenue year over year. So with that said, that will be one that Robert and I will be getting information on. That one I think is going to be worthwhile for us to go apply for. And then the only other thing I have is we got all of our invoices for the work that was done by Heartland for all of the funding, the Spark funding that we got from the county. We need to issue these checks tomorrow. Has to be done by the 30th. So I'm going to need to request permission to make some out-of-cycle payments tomorrow for the following things. Heartland HVAC, their invoice was $48,112. We bought some batteries from Owens True Value for $41.97. Those are batteries for the hand sanitizer stations. We bought the hand sanitizing stations and hand sanitizing gel from Amazon for $1,156.05. And that leaves a balance of $1.68 that we didn't spend, which I will need to send back to Cheyenne County. So if I could request a motion to issue those out-of-cycle payments tomorrow, that would be great.
Do I hear a motion to pay those invoices tomorrow?
So moved.
Moved by Amanda, second by Derek, all in favor? Approved.
That's all I have.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept and file the clerk's report?
So moved.
Moved by Derek, second by Larry, all in favor? Approved. Okay, council comments. Derek? Amanda? Larry?
No.
Okay. I will be leaving Saturday. See you in 2 months.
With that
If
said,
everything goes good.
we will have to get the mayor appointments figured out then. You're leaving Saturday.
That's the plans right now. They might change, but hopefully not. Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Larry seconded. Amanda, Larry seconded.
What do you want to do?
On those appointments,